After November 9th, 2025, Christians around the world will begin to experience a stirring in their spirits unlike anything they have felt in years. It will not be a stirring driven by fear or confusion, but by a deep inner whisper that calls them back to the heart of God. Many believers who have grown distant or weary will suddenly feel a hunger for prayer rising within them. They will find themselves longing to reconnect with God in ways they once thought they had lost. The distractions that used to pull them away will slowly lose their power, and the quiet voice of the Holy Spirit will begin to speak louder, clearer, and more personally. It will be as if God is gently shaking his people awake, reminding them of who they are and what they were created to carry. This awakening will not happen all at once, nor will it look the same for everyone, but it will spread like a soft spiritual wind, touching hearts from nation to nation. Many Christians who felt spiritually numb will suddenly feel alive again. The prayers they had forgotten will return to their lips. The scriptures that once seemed silent will begin to speak with new meaning. They will start noticing God's presence in moments they used to overlook. Morning light through a window, a sudden peace in a chaotic day, a kindness from a stranger, a verse appearing at just the right moment. Believers will begin to experience God not only in church buildings, but in their daily steps, their workplaces, their families, and their private struggles. It will feel as though God is reaching into the deepest places of their hearts, dusting off the parts that had been neglected, and rekindling a flame they thought had burned out. This awakening will also bring a renewed sense of purpose. Many Christians have lived with a silent heaviness, feeling unsure of their calling or distant from their spiritual identity. But after this date, something will begin to shift. They will sense that God is preparing them for something greater, something that requires their attention, their courage, and their obedience. Christians will start asking deeper questions. Why am I here? What does God want from me now? What part do I play in this time? These questions will not emerge from anxiety, but from a desire to walk more closely with God than they ever have before. The spiritual awakening will also break chains that have held many believers back for years. Addictions, fears, doubts, and hidden struggles that once felt impossible to overcome will begin to lose their grip. Not because the battles will become easier, but because God will strengthen the hearts of his people. Many will experience breakthroughs they had almost stopped praying for. Old wounds will start to heal. Forgiveness will rise where hatred once lived. Hope will grow in places where despair used to sit quietly. Families that have been divided will feel the first signs of restoration, and individuals who have lived in spiritual darkness will suddenly see a path toward light. This awakening will not be loud or dramatic at first. It will begin inside hearts, quietly but powerfully. And as each believer responds to God's call to return, an invisible spiritual wave will begin to sweep through communities, churches, and nations. People will feel drawn to gather again, not out of habit, but out of genuine longing. Worship will become deeper and more honest. Prayer meetings will grow without advertisements or efforts, because people will simply feel compelled to come. This spiritual returning will form the foundation on which God will build something extraordinary in the days ahead. In this awakening, Christians will understand that their faith was never about routines or rituals, but about relationship. They will begin to realize that God is not calling them to fear the future, but to trust him within it. The awakening after November 9th, 2025, will be a reminder that even when the world shakes, God whispers, and those who listen will rise with hearts more alive, more anchored, and more surrendered than ever before. After November 9th, 2025, many Christians will begin to feel a kind of pressure they may not have expected, a pressure that comes not only from the world around them, but also from the shifting atmosphere of their own spiritual journey. The values they hold dear, faith, purity, truth, compassion, forgiveness, will be questioned more intensely than before. Conversations that once felt simple may suddenly feel complicated. Opinions that used to be respected may now be challenged. There will be places where standing for Christ will no longer feel comfortable, and moments when silence will feel easier than speaking truth. Yet it is within this pressure that something remarkable will happen. Believers will discover that God's strength is not something distant, not something reserved for holy people of the past, but something living, present, and burning inside them. The more the world pushes against them, the more they will feel heaven pushing back with power, courage, and clarity. This increase in worldly pressure will not come to destroy their faith, but to shape it. Just as coal becomes a diamond under intense weight, Christians will find that their deepest identity is being refined. Those who once doubted their spiritual courage will begin to see bravery rise within them. Words they were afraid to speak will suddenly come with conviction. Choices they once struggled to make will become clear. They will begin to stand not out of pride or anger, but out of a quiet, unshakable certainty that God is with them, guiding them, strengthening them. Even those who feel weak or unprepared will find a supernatural boldness growing inside, a boldness that does not come from personality, but from the Spirit of God. Christians will notice that the more they are pushed to the edges of society, the more God draws them to the center of His will. The world may pressure them to hide their faith, to compromise their values, or to blend into the noise. But God will be calling them to rise above the noise, to stand as a gentle but firm light in a world that is growing increasingly confused. This will not be the kind of strength that makes them aggressive or proud. It will be the strength that keeps them peaceful in the storm, steady in the chaos, and faithful when everything around them seems to shift. Pressure will also reveal the people around them in new ways. Some relationships will strengthen because of shared faith, while others may strain under the differences in belief. But Christians will learn that God often uses pressure to separate what is harmful from what is holy. They will begin to recognize who truly walks with them spiritually and who simply walks beside them physically. Friendships rooted in faith will deepen, while relationships built on convenience may weaken. In all of this, they will understand that God is not taking people away to harm them, but preparing their hearts for the battles and blessings ahead. As the world challenges Christian beliefs more directly, believers will discover new layers of divine strength they did not know they possessed. Times of fear will turn into moments of prayer. Moments of doubt will turn into opportunities for trust. They will find themselves leaning on God more deeply than ever before, and in doing so, they will learn that His strength is not something they receive once. It is something they receive daily, moment by moment, breath by breath. And every time the pressure increases, God's presence will increase even more. The pressure will also drive Christians back to the Scriptures in a new way. Words that once seemed familiar will suddenly feel alive. Promises they read casually will now feel personal. The Bible will no longer be just a book. They will see it as a lifeline, a weapon, a source of supernatural resilience. And with every promise they cling to, their strength will grow. In the end, believers will realize that the world's pressure was never meant to weaken them. It was meant to awaken them, to toughen their spirit, to sharpen their focus, and to prepare them for the season ahead. God will not allow His people to face any pressure without providing even greater strength. The challenges will increase, yes, but the power of God flowing through His people will increase even more. This divine strength will carry them through every valley, every conflict, and every moment of uncertainty. It will become the testimony that shapes their future and inspires those who watch them endure with grace, courage, and unwavering faith. After November 9th, 2025, Christians will begin to feel a shift deep inside their spiritual identity, a shift from comfort to calling. For a long time, many believers have lived in a quiet rhythm of faith, attending services, praying when needed, doing good when convenient, and trying to remain peaceful in a chaotic world. But something powerful will begin to awaken within them. They will realize that God is not calling them to be silent observers of faith, but active carriers of it. They will begin to understand that their purpose was never meant to be small, hidden, or passive. Instead, they will feel a pull, a tug from heaven urging them to rise, to speak, to act, and to live with a conviction that cannot be shaken. Comfort will no longer satisfy their souls. They will hunger for something deeper, larger, and more meaningful than the predictable routines they once depended on. Christians will start to recognize the difference between being spiritually safe and being spiritually alive. Safety keeps faith in the background, alive but quiet. Calling, however, brings faith into the center of everything. After this state, many believers will feel that they can no longer remain silent when they see injustice, no longer stay still when they feel God prompting them, and no longer hide their faith for the sake of convenience or acceptance. They will feel as though God is gently but firmly pushing them into the very places they once avoided. Conversations that require courage, acts of kindness that require sacrifice, forgiveness that requires humility, and leadership that requires trust. What once felt intimidating will begin to feel necessary. This shift will also reveal a new courage inside believers. They will realize that being comfortable never truly brought peace. It only offered temporary ease. But stepping into God's calling, even when it feels uncertain, brings lasting clarity and strength. Many who felt unimportant or overlooked will begin to understand that God sees them, knows them, and has chosen them for something unique. Their talents, their wounds, their stories, their struggles, all the things they thought made them unqualified, will suddenly feel like tools God intends to use. They will begin to see their lives as part of something bigger than personal success or survival. They will sense that their faith has a mission attached to it, a mission that only they can fulfill. Churches will also transform during this shift. Congregations that once relied on routine will feel the need to rise into purpose. Worship will become more sincere, prayer more unified, teaching more urgent, and fellowship more meaningful. The atmosphere will change from attending church to being the church. People who once sat quietly in the back will feel led to step forward. Those who believed they had nothing to offer will find themselves volunteering, serving, and leading in ways they never imagined. The body of Christ will no longer function like a quiet group of spectators, but like a living army of compassion, truth, and spiritual fire. This shift from comfort to calling will also challenge Christians internally. They will have to confront parts of themselves they once ignored: fear, pride, complacency, hidden sins, unhealed pain. But instead of being overwhelmed, they will feel strengthened to face these things. God will not call them without equipping them. Many will experience personal growth that feels uncomfortable at first, like stretching muscles that have not been used in years. But with every stretch, their faith will get stronger. They will learn to step out of old patterns and step into new obedience. In homes, workplaces, social circles, and communities, this transformation will become visible. Christians will carry a different presence, calmer, wiser, braver, kinder, and more spiritually alert. They will feel responsible for spreading hope, for protecting truth, for lifting the weak, and for representing Christ in a world that desperately needs to see him. This is the calling God is awakening inside his people, not to blend in, but to stand out, not to shrink back, but to step forward, not to fear the future, but to shape it with unwavering faith. After November 9th, believers will understand that comfort was never their destination. Calling is. After November 9th, 2025, Christians will begin to notice something extraordinary unfolding around them. Subtle at first, but undeniable in its impact. Moments that once felt ordinary will suddenly carry spiritual weight. Prayers that seemed to linger unanswered will begin to show signs of movement. People who had been spiritually asleep for years will feel an unexpected stirring, and communities that felt dry will begin to experience fresh spiritual activity. It will not be chaos or confusion. It will be the quiet, steady unfolding of God's hand at work. Miracles will not always appear as loud, dramatic events. Many will show up in the form of restored relationships, renewed purpose, unexpected provision, emotional healing, and breakthroughs that no human effort could have produced. These moments will remind believers that God is not distant. He is deeply and actively involved, especially in seasons that feel heavy or uncertain. Some Christians will